It's one of those mornings, not everything goes perfect. This is not the Hallmark Channel. This is real life. So welcome to Real Life, Real Church, and we're glad you joined us. I want to take just a moment and introduce someone to you. I want Brandon and Crystal to come up here. Come on down. Come on down. We'll just go ahead and blame the confusion on the offering to them. We'll blame it on them. They had nothing to do with it, but we got to blame somebody. Aren't they a good-looking couple? Yeah. I've known Crystal since you were born. Yeah. Like coming into this world, and you told me you were how old the other day? 36? 34. I'm sorry. You're 36. That makes me really, really old. I'm gonna tell a story. She said, "You're not gonna embarrass me today, are you?" I'm not gonna embarrass you. It's just the truth. Okay. At one time, I dated her cousin in West Monroe, Louisiana, and you were in diapers, yeah. But you were moving. You could crawl around, and I just bought a new Grand Dam. Yeah, white with pleather seats, maroon pleather seats, and so it was about a 4-hour trip. And I'm telling you, from Vidor to West Monroe, she almost wore my console out, man, going from the front seat to the back seat. She was all over that car. So that's the wildest kid I've ever seen in my life. Didn't know one day we'd be hiring her and her husband, and so Brandon, they're our new care pastors, and they're going to help do ministry around here. So you've been in ministry how long? 13? About 13 years. So he's got some corn in the crib. From Nederland originally, the other black and gold. Welcome to the new black and gold. They already live in Vidor. And the only thing I see that will keep him out of heaven is this. He's an Alabama fan. Yeah, that's about the only thing. Yeah, and he said, I didn't just jump on the bandwagon. His family's from Alabama, so he kind of had to do that. But anyway, so we're going to work on that. We'll work on that for all you SEC people. You know I'm Longhorn, so I know that's bad for a lot of you. God bless you. We'll see you on the streets of gold. But yeah, we've been working on this for about 5 months, and really, it's a large church, way too big for this guy to handle. And so I've probably averaged a funeral a week over this coronavirus stuff, along with people losing their minds and needing counseling, and marriages going cray-cray, and just people that some people weren't meant to live together all the time. They're meant to go to work and come home. This quarantine has not been good. Matter of fact, Angie and I have had some intense moments. So I just needed help. I just felt in my spirit. Normally we'd go to a search thing that helps find pastors, and I just said, I don't feel like that's what we got to do. And matter of fact, in one of our board meetings, one of our elders said, I believe these people are going to come to us. And so sure enough, you made a phone call. Her and Megan, who sings up here, are first cousins. So can you sing? No. You don't sing? I can try. We all can sing. Okay. So anyway, she called Megan and said, look, we're looking to make a transition. And we're like, hold on a minute, let's look into this. And so got to meet with them. It's been a 5-month process. They're an incredible fit. I'm telling you, incredible fit. And so I just am excited and get to meet them. You'll love them to death. She is an incredible cook. She has been bringing this popcorn dipped in Reese cups up here, and I have put on, I've had to buy these stretchy pants. They got stretchy pants now, thanks to you. So she's an incredible cook, and they love hosting people, and they love people. That's what I said, what's your greatest asset? They said, we love people. I said, perfect. We can work with everything else in there except the Alabama thing, but they love people. So I want you to make them welcome, get to know them. Brandon and Crystal Burns, they got 3 kids. What's your boy's name? Brooks. Brooks is a baseball stud. A lot of you probably play ball together and probably know them through that. And the cheerleader. Annabella is a cheerleader. God bless you. I went through that. Mamas, don't let your babies grow up to be cheerleaders. And then baby girl, Aubrey, and she gets whatever she wants. She is Sour Patch Kid, and she is a sweetheart. So make them welcome. Get to meet them. Brandon and Crystal, welcome to Turning Point Church. Yep. God bless you. All right, I think I'm supposed to preach at this time. All right, here we go. We're in a series. It has nothing to do with you. And again, you're going, why am I here? If it has nothing to do with me, we're going to really land this plane next week. It's going to come together. John chapter 11, verse 4. When Jesus heard it, he said, this illness does not lead to death. It is for the glory of God. It has nothing to do with you guys. It has nothing to do with me. So that the Son of Man may be glorified through it. Now, Jesus loved Martha, her sister, and Lazarus, so when he heard that Lazarus is ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. Verse 14. And Jesus told them plainly, Lazarus has died, and for your sake I'm glad that I was not there so that you may believe. But let us go to him. Verse 38, we're just skipping all over the place. Nothing is on track today. Then Jesus, deeply moved again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, a stone laid against it, and Jesus said, take away the stone. Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, Lord, don't you like people that point out the obvious? By this time there will be an odor. He has been dead 4 days. Can you imagine a scalpel growing arrogant after a successful surgery? Have you ever heard of a football team who just won the national championship? I have to go there, Alabama. Yeah, LSU won this year. Let's just don't talk about Alabama. We don't have to talk about Alabama. Go Tigers. Yeah. Could you imagine them giving honor to the football after they won the national? I've never seen one of them hold up the football and say, thanks to this football, I've done such an incredible job, we have won the national championship. Never, never, never. These are only tools that help accomplish a goal. So are we when it comes to God. We may be the canvas, we may be the paper, we may be the clay, but we're not the ones who deserves the applause. Anybody out there this morning? So let's pause here. Back to our stinky story. God governs the world by laws. There are natural laws, laws that are predictable. That's why science is possible. You want to look at science? It's possible because they can see laws at work and draw conclusions based on the consistency of the law. For instance, how many of you know the sun rises and the sun sets? A couple of you, first service. Look, we've got coffee and donuts this morning. You should be much more alert than you are today. How many of you know that the sun rises in the east and it sets in the west? How many of you ever wake up during the day and go, I wonder if the sun's going to come up? We never have that thought because we know that law is in place. It's coming up. It's going to go down. All right, good. How can they create medicines for our bodies? Because our bodies function by consistent means. Each organ, it doesn't matter who you are, what color you are, how rich or poor you are, each of our organs function the same way. You know that? Your heart takes in blood, it pumps out blood. So does mine. That's how they can look at a body and they can go, this thing, it operates this way. There's a certain law by which it works. The law of gravity, very predictable. Especially if you've grown older or put on weight. Matter of fact, one of our overseers, Pastor Jeff Harris, he'll be speaking here in the next couple months. But when he comes, ask him, how's your basketball game, Pastor Jeff? Because Pastor Jeff is my age, and gravity has taken over, and he's got hand-to-mouth syndrome like me. Means he likes to eat, for those of you who are going. Anyway, so he got the bright idea. He was doing a series, and he said, I'm going to shoot a video of him trying to dunk a basketball, which is totally impossible. He couldn't even get near the net, but... So he sent me a video. I called him. I said, hey, man, what are you doing? He goes, I'm going into surgery. I said, surgery? C-section? What are you doing, man? He goes, nah, I had the crazy idea. I was going to shoot a video of me dunking a basketball. And so he sends me the video, and he's dribbling. He's got his shorts on, and he looks like he's from the 70s. He's all dressed up like, Larry Bird. And he goes, and his form's pretty good in the air. But when he comes down, you can see his knee. It's one of those, you know what I'm talking about, videos? His knee pops out. And so the law of gravity took over Pastor Jeff and slammed him to the ground. And so how many of you know it works every time? There's not a question in your mind, if I drop this Bible, it's going down. It's just the natural. When we talk about the supernatural, what does that mean? Now, that's not a spooky thing. People make it spooky. It's according to what TV channel you watch on TV. Supernatural means that which supersedes the natural, something that goes beyond my ability. This is where God trumps natural laws. He has set laws in place, but a miracle is when God overrules something that he set in place to accomplish something that he wants to prove or do. Anybody with me? For instance, we all know that you can't walk on water. Or my sunrise sunset people out here today. But Jesus did, and so did Simon Peter, to accomplish a point. When you and I get saved by putting our faith in Jesus, Ephesians 1:13 says that at that moment we were sealed with the Holy Spirit, which means I have access within me, or something that supersedes the natural or greater than the natural living within me. Anybody here? My problem is, I should say, I don't know about you, we stay so focused on the natural that we miss or resist or deny that which is in us to supersede the natural. There's something within me that is greater than me. Just like a football or a scalpel or a blank canvas looking at itself and saying, I am useless, and forget that alone in the natural, yes, I am useless. But in the hands or the presence of the right person who understands the reason and the purpose for its creation, it can become something awesome. Because I can look at me and I don't see a lot about me, but God apparently saw something about me because he called me out of darkness into his marvelous light. He put his Holy Spirit within me, so he must have something in mind. Matter of fact, he allowed me to be born into this world, into this certain place, to these certain people in this certain window of history, because he apparently has something for you and me to do in this moment. And this is what I know. It will bring that person of lot of glory who could do things with it that I could not do on my own. So in our story here in John 11, it's probably a familiar one to most people. Probably a familiar one. A story about a man who dies. That's natural. You do know that that day will come. Okay, gosh. Wow. A man who dies, that is natural, and is resurrected, that is supernatural. I want to give an overview of the story. Mary and Martha have called on Jesus to come heal their brother Lazarus. Jesus sends back word to them. In other words, don't worry about it. His sickness isn't. It's not. He's not going to die. But Jesus delays his going, and in his delay, sickness turns into death. Lazarus dies. So you're saying, well, is Jesus a liar? Or by the time Jesus shows up, he's not just dead, he is buried. This is the same Jesus who said, don't worry. You ever read the word, took something from it, but got something else? You ever stood on the promise of God? Come on, people, today. Are y'all still mad about Pastor Brandon being an Alabama fan? Come on. Focus here. You're going, how in the world can he do that? I don't know. That's just not Christ-like. Focus here today. He says, don't worry. It's the one who says, don't worry. This sickness isn't a death, yet the county coroner's office, they disagree. They bury him. Which leads to two very frustrated, angry sisters, because it's crazy when you stand on the promise of God, you always got to tell somebody, right? I'll just tell you right now, man, I'm just standing on faith, and I tell you, man, I got laid off today, but I just believe God's going to, I just feel like through the word today and prayer, I mean, God's going to give me a great job, you know, and before long, it's not coming to pass, and you've done told 20 people, you done put it on facelift, and you've done all those things, and man, wow. They're mad, they're frustrated. I mean, you sent back word, we done told everybody don't worry about it. We don't need the casserole, we don't need the pasta dish, we don't need a pineapple upside down cake, or maybe we do. hey, there's going to be no funeral. Everything's fine. Jesus has done sent word to us that it's good. You ever made a statement of faith that felt like he came back in your face? Martha says to Jesus, he shows up late. He's got a skip in his step, swag in his walk. Disciples are following around him like a bunch of little baby ducks. And they don't say welcome. They don't say, oh, have a slice of pie. They say, if you'd have been here, our brother would not have died. Where were you when we needed you? In other words, we gave you plenty of notice. We got your reply. Don't worry. He's not going to die. Yet he dies. Jesus shows up on the fourth day. What is significant about the fourth day? See, when you read the Bible, you need to look for significance. There's not accidental stuff in here. Why not the second day? Why not the third day? Why not an hour later? Why the fourth day? So I had to do some Jewish research into their culture, and I like researching that stuff. And so I had to find out, according to Jewish culture, what the significance of Jesus, his weight in arrival was, not revival. I guess he's about to have a revival. According to the Jewish Talmud, which is a book of Jewish religious law, after a person dies, according to Jewish culture, they believe the person's spirit hovers over the body of the dead for 3 days. This is one of the things they believe. After 3 days, it departs for good. In other words, any possibility of a resurrection, any possibility of reversing this, after 3 days is gone. This is what they believe. So, there are a couple things here I think most of us can relate to. Number one, we've had times when Jesus did not do what I thought he was going to do or how I thought he was going to do it. When I prayed to God, dug in his word, felt like he sent me a message, and then just the opposite happened. We all can relate to that. Jesus, we called on you, and the message I felt like I got back was, everything's going to be okay. And if we want to be truthful, since we're in church, let's be truthful, at least for an hour. There have been times I believe God made things worse. I know you can't say yes to that because you'd almost feel like, I can't be honest in that area. How many of you know someone that you felt like God made it worse? Yeah. Second thing we can relate to is found in verse 38. Jesus, deeply moved, came again to the tomb. It was a cave, a stone laid against it. Jesus said, take away the stone. Mary said, hey, let's don't do that. You ever had somebody give up on you? I have. Like they thought you were too far gone. How about in the cheap seats? Any of y'all up there, somebody just, like you were past hope. Why pray again? Why hope again? Why believe again? They may have even prayed for you and you got worse. See, I said last week, sometimes bad has to get worse before it can get better. You might know what I'm talking about. Talked to a person this week. I said, listen to me. It's bad, but I'll tell you what, before this person can ever find their way back to Jesus, bad's got to get worse before it can get better. So their final verdict they place on you is dead, expired. Put you in a tomb, roll a rock in front of you, and walk away. Or maybe there's times you have given up on yourself. I have. God, here I am again praying the same prayer of forgiveness. Please, I know I was just here yesterday repenting over the same thing, and after a while you quit going to him with it because you just figure out this is just who I am. Maybe you said I'm past the point of return. See, at some point in this process, Lazarus lost the will to fight. Got tired of people telling him, hang on, Jesus is on his way. Got tired of people at church coming up and putting their arm around him and saying, man, just keep pushing forward. Keep getting up. Rejoice not against me, O my enemy. When I fall, I shall arise. Oh, come on, get back up. A righteous man falleth 7 times and then rises up again. Come on, after a while you get tired of that. Come on, you're going to do this. Let me tell you what happened to me one day. I was just where you were at, and you appreciate the testimony. But bless God, you walk over there and encourage, and you face plant in the same mess. You kind of get tired. Lazarus, just hang on. We've done sent word to Jesus. He's coming. It's going to be okay. He's going to rescue you from this. I know it's too real, but this isn't homework time. I've seen people, like I tell you, I do about 70 funerals a year. I've been with people when they have taken their last breath. I've seen some of the most beautiful experiences with death and some of the worst experiences with death. I was with a man one time, and right before he took his last breath, his last words were, "Oh, it's so beautiful, and there's so many." I'm like, wow. I read a story of an old black preacher. He preached about heaven just about every message. That was his thing, trying to bring heaven to light to people. And before he died, they documented this. He said, "Oh, my Lord, I didn't do it any justice." I was with a man one time that screamed out, "My feet are on fire." Seen it all. But I've seen people who have the will to live. And the doctors come in and get the family together, and you call all your people. They fly from Kansas and New York and come on down, and everybody's ready. And everybody's expecting death except the person who's expected to die, and they didn't believe what the doctor said, and everybody's crying. And now, you finally got together after 20 years. It's amazing that that's what it takes to bring people together, and you're here, and you're like, "Mama, I love you, Mama, you're my dad." And she's sitting there going, if they'd unsedate me, if they'd quit shooting that morphine in my body, I'd get up from here and go cook y'all something, but I'm in an induced coma. And so they said, we're going to quit giving her everything, and we're going to take her off all this, and she can probably hear you, so whisper in her ear. No kidding, I saw this. I saw this with my own eyes. They were doing that, and they were in her ear. It was about a 92-year-old lady. She opens her eyes and looks at her and goes, "Would y'all get out of my ear?" She wasn't ready. Jesus waits 4 days. He waits until all the tradition, all the cultural beliefs have kicked in. He waits until Lazarus gives up and the family gives up because 3 days have now passed. He waits until it's at its worst point to act. I'm going to tell you why later, but I will tell you it has nothing to do with us. He waited until Lazarus, by the words of his sister, by now he stinks. But what we see here really is the only thing that stunk worse than Lazarus was their faith. I'll move on from that. See, because they went by what they saw and forgot what Jesus said, or better yet, they believed what they saw in the natural more than what Jesus said in the supernatural. Jesus said his sickness isn't to death, y'all don't worry. So I looked up the word death in the Greek, and it means dead. That didn't help me. So let me look up the word. It can mean different things. And so I pulled it up in this setting here, and it means dead. So I dug deeper. What does dead mean? It means to be expired. When something is expired or reached its expiration date, it means it can no longer be used. Like the whipping cream that I pulled out of our refrigerator the other day, and I don't normally put cream in my coffee, but my daughter was there from Oklahoma, and she had got some other stuff, and I didn't know, and she had it, and I said, man, that looks good, that smells good. I'm going to try a little cream in my coffee, and I didn't know that she had like coffee-made creamer, but there was some whipping cream, and I poured it in there, and it come out like, I looked on there, expired. No good for nothing, can't be used. So apparently, Jesus' definition of death and ours is different. We describe death as no more breath. Jesus looks at death as, can it still be used? Now, I've personally never seen anybody raised from the dead. I have prayed for people that the doctor said walked out and said, it's not good, and they're not going to lie, and they bounced back. Whether that was supernatural, the will to live, I don't know. It probably had nothing to do with me, because I told you last week, most people I prayed for early in my ministry died. I am not kidding you. People begged, please don't send that guy up here. Word gets out quick, dude, when you're praying for people and they die. I've never seen this, but I have seen people who have died that were never resurrected here. I've seen their death change hundreds of thousands of people, though. God used that death. I got one in particular that I can tell you right now that has touched America. Okay? Jesus is about to show us Lazarus still has some use. He has not reached his expiration date, because Jesus is about to use him to pull something off, and it has nothing to do with Lazarus. And we're going to find out, just because everybody says we're of no use, that Jesus has a second opinion, and his version of death and ours are two different definitions. So Jesus weeps. I've said this, and I not because of their actions. I know it was their faith, and their faith stunk. It really did, but I don't think that's really why. I don't think it was his humanity. But again, I've told you this many, many times, and I really believe this. I believe that Jesus is weeping because he's having to bring Lazarus back into this world when he had it made for 4 days, but he's having to bring him back to prove a point. So he's a football, and Jesus needs it to win something here. And so Lazarus has it made in heaven for 4 days, and I believe Jesus weeps. You know, he's not weeping because he's dead, because he knows I'm about to resurrect this dude. So why is he crying about that? So I believe that's why he's weeping for Lazarus, because, man, I'm sorry, I got to bring you back to prove a point. You're in paradise, but I'm going to bring you back to this poop. So he brings back Lazarus back, not for Lazarus' sake, but for his sake, in the sake of other people. So he steps beyond the natural to the supernatural. And he's sad because he's pulling him back in his supernatural emotion, because what will happen to one man is going to affect millions. And what he did to that one man, Lazarus, he wants to do to all of us. And we're going to find out why next week. Okay, so you got to come back. That means people say, why do you do that? So you'll come back. Because if I gave you everything, you wouldn't come back. I could really preach a series really in one message, but I'm not. I break it up in 3, so you come back. But we're going to find out with Jesus. Listen to me. I want you to listen. I'm landing a plane. We're going to find out that with Jesus, in the supernatural, our comeback is always greater than our setback. I'm going to say that again. Our comeback will always be greater and be a much greater testimony than our setback. Our setback will always be a part of our testimony. And if you got that, don't be afraid to tell people that. I had a preacher tell me and my wife one time, do not share your past with people, because we got a past. My daddy wasn't no preacher. My grandpa wasn't no preacher. My great-grandpa wasn't no preacher. And my wife sure wasn't. We got a past. You hear me? I had a preacher one time say, y'all don't need to share your past with people now. Y'all, you've been saved and you're now in the ministry. That's back when we had the 3 chairs on the stage, the thrones. You ever been to one of them churches? The throne churches? Big throne for big pastor, head pastor. You knew who was a head pastor because he had that. Worship leader, youth pastor. Don't mess up your reputation. In other words, don't share your testimony. In other words, don't tell people how God has delivered you. In other words, don't share your journey of I was dead and I was stunk and everybody gave up on me but Jesus. Let me tell you, the worse your past is, the more you need to share it about what Jesus has done. And we're going to, listen to me, this is all going to come together next week. You're going to find out how powerful that the devil thinks your testimony really is. And the lengths he will go to stop it. You're going to find out. It's going to make sense to you. But this is what I know. Our comeback is always greater than our setback was. And many times what we think is falling apart, God says it's just falling into place. Many times before God can begin, we have to come to an end. And it's only when we run out of options that I will tell you in my experience, it was only when I run out of options that I step out of the way and I invite God in. Because it is human-like, right? As long as we got options to keep using our options. But I want to tell you by experience, it is not till I have been flat down most of the times of my life that I have cried out to him. It's not till I stinketh. That's King James for you guys that are King Jimmy it. By now he stinketh. Oh, myeth. It's not until I couldn't stand my own smell that I cried out to Jesus. And we're going to find out next week what Jesus can do and what he wants to do through a bunch of dead men walking. Any dead men walking in here? Anybody here that you gave up on yourself, people gave up on you, but Jesus never did? Aren't you glad of that? Stand with me. Father, we come before you with a heart of gratefulness and thankfulness that you can take people like us and do something amazing. You can take a lump of clay because you are the potter, and you can make a beautiful vessel out of it. You can take a blank canvas because you are the artist and paint a beautiful picture on it. Your vision so far supersedes what we have for ourselves. God, if only we could see what you had in store for us, then we would understand the battle that we fight from the enemy. If only we understood the plan God has for our lives as much as the enemy understands it, we would understand the battle that we're in. Because God and Satan both know the power of a walking dead man. I pray that you would use us bunch of forgiven people. Because he who has been forgiven much, the word says, loves much. Lord, we are walking catalysts of change for the kingdom. Use us for your glory. Use us for your honor, so that others can look at us and say, there must be a God. There must be something to this Jesus thing. What is it? And we can tell them it's the Holy Spirit that dwells within us that is setting us free. We have been set free from the penalty of sin, but we are in the process of continual sanctification. We're a walking act of change because of whose we are. Use every one of us, and don't let us ever be afraid and ashamed to tell our story, because you're the main character in that story. We love you today. We thank you for what you're doing. I'm glad I don't have to get up here and say, one day God will. I'm glad we get to sit here and say, God is. Thank you for what you're doing, Jesus. Thank you for the lives that are being changed, Jesus. Thank you for those who are going to make a next step in baptism to say, hey, I am His, He is mine, and I'm not ashamed of it. We thank you for that. I pray you'd go with us this week and let us be light and salt to a dark, lost world. It's in your name we pray. And everybody say amen. Let's worship Him one more time before we leave.